Welcome to another episode of Ready to Launch, a special series on entrepreneurship in the MENA region on the Wilson Center podcast, Riyada. I'm your host, Merissa Khurma, Director of the Middle East Program at the Wilson Center. And happy Women's History Month to all of you. Truly the perfect opportunity to zoom into the world of entrepreneurship for women in the MENA region, which sadly has one of the lowest entrepreneurship rates in the world for women at a meager 4%. This month, we will talk to women entrepreneurs, investors, industry leaders, as well as experts on the topic. We want to explore what challenges women face to start their own business or to grow it, but also what progress some of the women have made and where they are. And finally, we want to talk about where the hope lies and the opportunity to invest more in women entrepreneurs. Our guest today is an expert on all things women and entrepreneurship in the Middle East, Lynn Mounzer. She researches how women in the MENA region can overcome this lack of support and get access to the tools to build businesses and social enterprises and become more independent, as well as the socioeconomic, cultural, and political conditions that are needed to foster female entrepreneurship. Lynn, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Merissa, for having me. It's an important subject, and thank you so much for highlighting the topic.
So, Lynn, let's start with your research. We know what the data says, that basically it's a women entrepreneurship in the region is very low. So what have you identified in terms of the main barriers for women to start their own businesses?
So I tried to get a general idea of the condition of women entrepreneurs in our region. Of course, let's start by saying that every country is different, but there are common problems. I divided them into 4 categories: cultural, sociocultural, training and network, financial, and legal problem, and governmental, of course. On the cultural level, you see the traditional nature of the Middle East region. It imposes a conventional role on women, where they're expected to perform most, if not all, the household and caregiving responsibilities, which makes it so hard for women to balance their entrepreneurial work and their families. So most of the women I talked to, they felt the tension, they felt the struggle to even manage the social expectation and to have any kind of fulfilling life. So most of the participants, they also felt the resistance from their environment and discouraged them from working. They told them, like, focus on your family, find a secure job, just go get married instead, forget about these games, and it's time for you to have a better life. For them, entrepreneurship wasn't the life for women. And all of this created skepticism around women's work. So they felt their businesses being judged. The society created this inacceptance of their work, inacceptance of what they're delivering, which made it very hard to survive or even expand their businesses. On the second level is the networking, which, as you know, it's very hard for a society that's very traditional to connect, especially with men. Women felt, participants in my research, they mentioned the networking event as an old boys club. They felt uncomfortable. They worried about their reputation. You know, it's very important in the Middle East, where your reputation is everything, and being in a room with men is not good for business. They also find it difficult to get information. So because they're not able to network, where this is where you get most of the business information, they lacked knowledge and basic information to grow their businesses or even to deliver. The one interesting part is when the women I talked to, they felt they knew they have the skills to run a business. So most previous research mentioned that women do not have the skills, do not have the knowledge to create to start a business. But in my research, around 81% of the participants said they have the skills and they got it from their previous work experience. It prepared them to lead a venture, even though most of them went to a different sector. But the whole basic knowledge of how to run a business, how to run your accounting, how to run your employees, all of that, they had that. And that helped them. That's one of the reasons they started the business. Now, third, which is a problem that's found worldwide, but in the Middle East, it's still big, which is financial. The lack of access to capital and financial support are the biggest obstacle women face. Most of the participants, more than 50% of the participants, they relied on their personal saving as the capital source. So they didn't have access to funding. And they decided to self-fund because, not just because of lack of funding, it's because they believed, they didn't even want to apply for a loan because they believed the banks and financial institutes do not support women. So a lot of them they told me that they didn't even try to apply for a loan. They knew how it felt, and the women who applied for a loan, they were criticized. They felt uneasy around the customer service. They don't have collaterals. They don't have. They start telling that they don't have the right skills, the right knowledge. They made fun of their business ideas, and then several women mentioned that when they brought a man partner with them, their business felt appealing right away, and they received the loan. So,
and that was the same business idea. It was just basically,
yes, because they don't take women seriously in their business. They think, okay, that's just another woman with a board, has nothing to do, and she's just coming up with it. Let's not take her serious. She's gonna eventually get married and settle down. Like, why should we take a risk on her? Why should we give her a loan? Why should we support her? So that feeling was presented by all the participants. Every one of them told me how it was uneasy to get a loan or decided not to do it anyway. So they either used their personal saving or relied on their family support, their family money.
And if you don't have savings or you don't have that kind of family support, then you are at a disadvantage from day one, and therefore unable to even think of entrepreneurship as a means towards, becoming active in the economy or making money. Everything that you've described, these three different sort of pillars of challenges, reminds me of a study that was conducted on education curricula in Jordan, and how basically the conclusion was the education system is preparing women for the marriage market and not for the labor market, because there's so much emphasis on, as you said, their roles as mothers and housewives, and less on their contribution to the economy. And you also mentioned, Lynn, that there are variations across different countries, but of course, these are generally the challenges that you see or the barriers that you see. So where are some of these pockets of success that perhaps we can highlight and learn from? Have some countries made some progress?
Well, in the past, I want to say 5 to 7 years, the lot of, especially the Gulf countries, they're trying to move beyond their oil business. They're trying to, and now they understand the importance of women participation in the economy, because they know they're losing $575 billion yearly because of that. So a lot of countries, like Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, they're trying to create an enabling environment for women to succeed. They're providing them with special loans. They're providing them with training sessions. They're involving the global community in providing them with all that they need to succeed. The one part that's missing is the focus on the social and cultural. So if we're providing the women with the training and the skills, we're providing them with finance, we're providing them with an accepting and enabling environment, yet the society is still not accepting women being in business, or they perceive women as not capable of running a business, or creating, or participating, or that's where the setback is. So we need a lot of change in policies. They're on the way. They're changing. Like we see, a big example is Saudi Arabia. They're changing a lot of policies that relate to women and laws to make it easy to commute, easy to travel, to start a business. They're doing all of that. Like another example is Bahrain is like they also have a women's center. They're trying to focus on women issues and create a supporting environment for women. Yet we cannot forget culture. So if we do all of that and we don't have a proper campaign that helps the accepting women as entrepreneur or as even part of the economy, we're not going to move forward. So a lot of effort is done. A lot of effort is being done. We still have a lot to do. At least we're there. We're moving forward.
It's moving. There's definitely movement and there's definitely progress. But, I cannot help but point also that the countries that you've highlighted are resource-rich countries, particularly in relation or in comparison to others in the region, like Lebanon or Jordan, or even Tunisia. And those are the countries where, as you know, and I'm sure your research has shown, women are educated. In fact, there are more women graduates, university graduates than men in some countries. Mm-hmm. But then that's not really translating to the workforce, and specifically not necessarily in entrepreneurship. And I wonder, with the sociocultural mindset, as you said, a significant barrier, particularly in the MENA region, beyond just campaigns, because the problem with campaigns, at least the way I see it, is that they have a timeline. They start and they finish, and this is really ongoing work. So what else do you think can be done to start getting the younger generation, at least, to think about women's roles in society and their contribution to the economy differently?
Okay, that's so true what you said. I mentioned rich countries. They have the capacity to involve and provide solution for women. Other countries like Lebanon, for example, they're barely surviving. They have a lot of economic problems, and gender is never a focus for them. So even if there is any plan of recovery, they do not include women as part of the recovery. Tunisia, they've been, I think I want to say they've been the first in providing and being in giving women the right to work, and they're just including them in political and economic atmosphere. But that's where society also plays a big role over there. The problem is in research, not the problem. The research, the resource rich countries are able to provide the basic needs, which is what we always recommend in order to increase women economic participation: capacity building. There are 4 pillars. So first, we start with the capacity building. In schools, we're providing women, as you just mentioned, the Jordan research. They're not providing them the support. They're not pushing them towards excelling. They're pushing them towards going towards having safe job or their own families. And so if
the public sector, right? Or teaching or nursing. That's right.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're telling them to. That's what schools are telling them you're capable of doing. So we see now there's a latest research show that there's a lot of women in STEM in the Middle East, yet that doesn't translate in the labor market because they tend to end up in safe jobs.
Right.
So in government, education. So that's always the problem with the Middle East. So starting with education and proper training. So you have the skills, you give you the knowledge, you have the capacity, and you have the information. Now, how can we help you translate it into a business idea or being a part of the labor market that's beyond the service sector? Let's just take your knowledge. You're capable of growing a business or being an engineer in tech company. That's where the education system should change. It should provide the proper transition from school to labor market without women feeling, we call it imposter syndrome. We don't want them to feel that. We want them to feel capable of doing that. And that's where the government and the education system plays a big role. Another one, capital resources. We talk about money all the time. They need proper financing. They need to feel that they're able to.
Because without that, you can't do anything.
Exactly. And they feel if their jobs, the jobs that women already have now in the Middle East, they're low-paying jobs. The service sector is not the one that, teaching is not going to give you as much money as when you're a senior in a tech company. So if you don't have enough money to save to build something, so how can you build something, or how can you think beyond your survival mode?
Absolutely. So you're thinking about survival as sort of the main goal instead of thinking about thriving as a goal.
Exactly. So it's I want to make it day to day. I want to make basic income. I want to support myself, support my family. But that's all I can do. That's all I can do, how can I grow? How can I save money to start something? And that's always a problem. Low salary, we have a huge pay gap in the Middle East. I've experienced it myself. I was in a senior position with a colleague of mine. He's a man, and we have the same responsibilities. He got paid more than I did because he's gonna start a family while I'm not responsible for a family. So I realized after I left that there was a pay gap, and I was part of.
It's real.
It is real, and it's more painful when you go through it yourself.
Absolutely.
I read about it, I work on it, but facing it's just still painful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then we go to regulations. So if women do not have the ease of move without even being harassed in the workplace, if nothing is done about it, they're not going to join the workforce. If nothing is done about all the regulation that will help them be included, for example, registering a business. A lot of countries like Qatar, they have they make it difficult to register a business. Not just because of that. Also, having an employee is another regulation problem. They feel the women have to. You mentioned they have to go through a lot of paperwork, and they may or may not accept the person they're hiring. They have a lot of restrictions when hiring, so that a lot of women felt there's a lot of difficulty in registering and hiring employees. So laws and regulation are really important in order to create this safe environment to push women towards entrepreneurship or even joining the workforce.
I mean, if I may jump in here, Lynn. So, the way that businesses are registered here in Washington, D.C. or across the river in Virginia is very different because you can do the whole process online and then you can upload necessary forms or you can mail them in. And with that, there's no interface. There's no personal interface with individuals. So the digitization of business registration may actually address some of the harassment issue. Not that we don't need the anti-harassment laws. We do, but it's one way to do it. Are there any countries in the region that, from your knowledge?
They're trying, again, it's always resource-rich countries, which is the Gulf region. They're trying to go to digitize everything. Women in Saudi Arabia told me that they, especially with the banking sector, everything is digitized. Everything they felt easy about just opening the bank account and doing business because it's all online. And COVID helped them actually, because it made them feel safe to be online and to have a product online and sell it, or a service.
Right.
So that's one part.
Interesting.
I know that UAE is moving. Everything is moving online now. They're trying to make everything easy to do it from home, which makes it also super easy for women to register. Digitization is important, especially in a region like the Middle East. If women still don't feel comfortable going and communicating with a man in an office, and if they feel vulnerable doing that, being online at their home, doing all of that is the right course of action to help them be part, to help them register a business, to help them grow.
Absolutely.
But that's still like, it's a process, and even some women don't feel safe. This is where we go to online violence, because they don't feel safe sharing their information online.
Yeah.
This is another campaign that goes through, like, it's okay, you're safe. This is how you can be safe online, sharing your information, sharing what you're doing, sharing your business location, sharing your house location. There's another layer to add in order for women to feel safe online as well.
Because there's also more barriers there, and we've tackled that actually last year during the 16 days of activism. We talked about online harassment in this regard. So you're absolutely right. It is very much a real concern for a lot of women, especially in the MENA region. So we want to wrap this up, and I always like to sort of highlight or talk about the hope, because there is some progress, there is some movement. The barriers also still exist, and it's very frustrating. But from your vantage point, where do you see the hope for more women entrepreneurs in the MENA region?
I did my thesis between 2018 and 2019. This is when I collected the information, the data, and I already see a big difference and an increase in a number of female entrepreneurs. It's not so apparent in data. It's more apparent than what's going on. So there's less shift towards service sector. We see more women in STEM. We see a lot of women in our region going to starting tech companies. There is hope. The region is moving forward. And I was living in Lebanon like 5 years ago, and now the number of women I talk to in Lebanon who are entrepreneurs increased majorly, especially with COVID. So they've left the job, which didn't provide them security or enough income, and started their own thing. And this was a kind of a push for them. Okay, Lebanon is not a good example since they don't have an enabling environment for women, but we also see that around the region. Women are growing confidence in their capacity. They're growing confidence in their ideas, in their, especially in the newer generation. They're pushing the boundaries. They're not limited by their culture. So the hope is there. I'm sure we're moving forward. It's slower than I want it to be, but I already see it.
Wonderful. Well, that's a really great way to wrap this up and wrap this conversation. Thank you so much, Lynn, for joining us, for sharing your findings and your research, and we look forward to more conversations in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Merissa. Thank you so much.
This podcast is funded by a grant from the United States Department of State. The opinions, findings, and conclusions of this podcast are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the U.S. Department of State.